Alex Answer here, June 2nd, 2016. In this video, as I walk through this forest here in southwest Colorado, it seems I do my best thinking when I'm walking, and even more so when I'm in nature. We're going to talk about surviving a motherless world. Now, this has both literal and metaphorical meaning. We are also living in the time of the dark feminine rising. I am speaking from the heart. I'm speaking from my intuition. I consider myself to be one of the few alive today on the earth, speaking about very specific issues. I also feel like I've been punished for it, and now I'm starting to understand my power. I'm starting to understand the necessity, especially in this day and age, to continue speaking about these issues, because in the end, I see beyond the duality of masculine and feminine, and I see the oneness of all. I see the gender warfare, and I can articulate in ways that I have not seen others articulate this stage-managed gender warfare, turning us against each other. And what I can say is that when we observe how the dark side uses one group against the other politically, when we understand geopolitics, when we're able to understand that kind of history, even how they funded radical Islam and extreme versions of it, so they always have, right, the excuse to keep the troops in the Middle East. So when we see the mind control that has infected many women today, to view, in particular, good men that want to help them a certain way, like they're the threat, men that want to warn them, to view them as negative entities, not in line with the law of attraction. Yeah, baby, attraction. When we see this type of, it's like eating one's young, like a lion or an animal eating their own young. Surviving a motherless world is both literal and metaphoric. You know, I've got a lot of different thoughts rambling around in my head, but something energetically has taken place within the last few generations. I've had a lot of thoughts waking up this morning. For those that lived through the 70s and 80s, that was a privileged generation. Some people choose to call them the baby boomers. But there is a spoiled brat generation that inherited a lot from living in this country during that period. Those are more romantic periods. The economic times were tough, but life was simpler. And it was after the post-World War II boom, and there was a lot of negative energy that came in generationally to a lot of American families, karmically, for what was done to the Japanese. I feel this. And I feel that, especially for those of you that know about World War II and aspects of it being staged, as well as Pearl Harbor being allowed to take place, then you have a lot of needless deaths in Japan. I think that the reality of the situation is, especially when I look at my white side, my mother's side of the family, and I see the privilege, the real privilege, that generation, the offspring, the children of my grandfather, that they, it's borderline royalty. You know, the wealth no longer exists now that my grandfather's no longer alive, but while he was alive, if you were to compare their lives to lives of others, where their parents had nothing, they were living in the city, you can see the privilegedness. Fast forward to the abuse that I know that I endured through my mother, and experiencing through my mother what a lot of women have actually become in this day and age, and actually seeing her transformation from something caring to something very dark and angry and confrontational on a energetic level. And the suppression of the divine masculine, I would say that I was experiencing through her at a very young age going into my adulthood. In particular, though, in my adulthood, in our phone conversations, and feeling completely disrespected in every way you can imagine with regards to my research And when you're dealing with an adult who's always been screamed at by his parent, for someone like me to get involved in the alternative media and speak about these issues, I've always wanted validation that I was a good son on the right path. And instead, all this research and everything that I've done to try to awaken and even bring light to the plight of women living under the New World Order, past, present, and future, where things are going, it's all been viewed as something that makes me... There's never been anything right with me in the eyes of my mother. So what I can see is a society, for example, where some women and men have come up under much greater conditions than the women that came before them, and much better conditions than some of the women living today. And to see how that level of being sheltered and protected from certain things has not necessarily resulted in a more enlightened feminine population. Something else, in fact, has taken place, and we have seen the rise of the entitled dark feminine. Other terms come to mind: princess programming, princess complex. And then we've seen the rise in the false deity, false goddess worship, where people are no longer looking to the true God. They're directing people towards their body, which they put a price tag on. So we've seen a major transformation within the feminine, I'd say, since World War II. And a lot of darkness coming back to this country, and not just from situations like that, but I would also say certain areas where the Native Americans have been persecuted. There are so many ways in which and in where women have and are co-signing the violent behaviors of men. I stand against this. I stand against the idea of sexually rewarding anyone for murdering other people. But is this a way of life, or is this not a way of life in reality on earth today? Past, present, and future. You tell me. You tell me whether the bad men, the murderers, the soldiers are being rewarded with marriages, love, affection, children. And you tell me if people like me, and there's a few others, but very few, because few will say the things that I've said and pay the consequences that I've paid. People like me, not Alex Jones, people that already have money and family and people that help them get to where they're at. I'm talking about today's multimedia starving artist speaking out against the real spiritual warfare taking place and not holding punches and not getting behind Sanders or Trump, but continuing to stand by one's guns. Where do people like me end up? Okay, we are left on the street and forgotten. Okay, there's a reason why no females from either side of the family ever contact me for any reason. People that I've never met. Really? Really? My videos are that crass? So look, I've been doing this for a long time. You don't have to agree with everything that I've said, but all of it's crazy? Why are you watching? All of it's horrible? Really? Really? See, what I see is a world that I chose to incarnate into, possibly choosing my parents and genetics, to where goodness is punished appropriately. Where people are singled out, that do stand out, and are targeted spiritually by entities that think that this is their planet. Entities that other people don't understand and cannot see, but are obviously controlled by. And that includes their sexuality. That includes whether they feel happy or not with their child, or whether they feel enraged with the fury of the devil. As I've seen that fury of the Archon Demiurge in both my mother and my father's eyes, I've come to realize that that was my first experience with the dark side. So even though I titled this, kind of surviving a motherless world, it's really also about surviving a fatherless world. I've survived quite a bit without a real mother and father. And I've survived both the wrath of my mother and father. And I've gone on to have issues with both men and women to a certain degree that have proven themselves, at least my caution around them, to be very justified and not based in fear. I've left myself very open to people to contact me, and I've met people, and continuously, there are continuous people that contact with their own agenda to be a master manipulator, to toy with my emotions, or create sabotage. Like it's some sort of fucking practical joke that somehow, some way, energetically, they're getting off on causing sabotage and misrepresenting themselves when they contact me as someone that they're not, just to get the cord going. To survive a motherless world and a fatherless world, you have to be your own mother. You have to be your own father. You have to come to an understanding that sometimes bad things happen not because of your karma, but because you're doing the right thing. And this goes contrary to everything that we're taught. There is such a thing as karma. And those people that have hurt, that have mauled, that have destroyed, that have manipulated, that have stolen, some way, shape, or form, they have their lessons handed to them. Whether it be in the form of their asses being handed to them, or a lesson being handed to them. I don't think that the universe treats all things the same way. I am not a religious person, but there is something about this divine matrix to where in a way there are no victims. And I can feel that. And I can see that. So we have to reverse the damage that's been done to us to survive the motherless world. We have to learn how to nurture ourselves and actually understand what that is. We have to understand what self-healing is. We have to understand what true health is. We have to understand what true romance is. And actually, truly, to see ourselves as we want to be seen. And I mean that in a positive way, not in a master hypnotist way. But we have to see the good in ourselves in some cases before others can see that. In some cases, others can see the good in ourselves, but we could be in a world of pain because of the good that we've done and the persecution. I appreciate the positive comments that have come in over the years. It does help. It does help. I wish I could say that it was enough to make up for all the pain that I've experienced through the loneliness and isolation in every way you can imagine through my work. We all know that if I was a different person, we all know that if I was applying my intellect to making money for someone and going along to get along and promoting, certain ridiculous businesses, or using my gift and gab to involve myself in sales online to, hey, I'm buying now, $19.95. Oh, hey, ha, ha, ha. We know I have those abilities. And I could have chosen early on to brand myself, Alex Hanstry, the trademark, and trademark outside the box and all this ridiculous stuff and say things that people want to hear. I'm not impressed by fame and fortune. Maybe in another time and place I've experienced fame and fortune. Maybe it's because I could see that those people in our society that have it all, that have the sports car, they look like miserable SOBs. Whether it be this area or other areas, there are people that act like they've got it all. And they act like they have no soul, though, at the same time. So I'm able to deal with poverty and loneliness because I see people that have it all and have a wife and have kids, and some of these men, they're not more happy. They're all fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs upstairs. They're worried about losing what they have. They're consumed with some sort of fight or argument energetically with their significant other, which in many cases is really unnecessary. Especially when that friction is over money, or the status of the house, or the status of the mortgage, or the amount of money that they're making. Wow, that's not love. That's slavery. That's a man in slavery, ladies and gentlemen. And you want to see a man in slavery, walk outside and look to your left and right, and you will find a man in slavery very quickly. So surviving the fatherless world and the motherless world means loving that masculine and feminine within you. You can be a heterosexual, but there are aspects of us, like night and day, male, female, that we should nourish, that we should love, that we should heal. We need to heal and love those aspects of ourselves that have been abandoned. You see, the people that don't survive the motherless world, they become killers and rapists. There's actually a reason why. There is a connection between someone's upbringing and the kind of person they become later on in life. At the same time, there's a wild card factor that I've noticed. You can have completely loving parents, and they can bring their child in this world and buy that child lots of toys and take care of that child and put that child in a good school, and that child can go on to fucking rape somebody or beat somebody down, hang out with a bunch of other thugs in high school. Yeah, we're gonna fuck this kid up. We're gonna fuck this girl up. Yeah, we're thugs. And there's something about an evil that gets into adolescence when their hormones kick in, but they're not spiritually grounded. Their hormones can take them to a dark place if they don't have a spiritual grounding. Okay? If they don't remain grounded, their spirit grounded, their hormones could lead them to almost go out of body. This is a new concept for some of you. We'll talk about this more later on. So for people that go through that hormonal, and they're growing up in the motherless world and they're not connected to spirit, the dark side is waiting for them to use their feminine, to use their masculine for dark purposes because they've been traumatized. So self-healing to deal with trauma in a motherless world and a fatherless world. Now this transcends beyond female. Maybe you're a woman, you've been raped and hurt by men. Maybe you're a man, you've been brutalized by women. Maybe they've taken from you. Maybe they've burned you and tied you up. Maybe your mother tied you up and burned a cross on you and said, "Demon, be gone." You know, I'm not saying it happened to me. It did energetically and with words, not those specific words, but energetically, that was going on. Be corrected. You know, like the angry pastor of the church, the masculine dominator, the archon. You must be corrected in channeling that deity-like energy. That's motherlessness. That's brutality. And there's ways that men, so-called fathers, they're not really men, they're boys, yelling at their son, "Be a real man and do as I say." A real man doesn't just obey the orders of other men. That's such an oxymoron. Look at my father. "Be a coward. Don't hit the heavy bag. Be one of these motherfuckers who's all about status and money and townhouses and mini houses and kids and straight A's, SAT scores, college degrees. America, fuck yeah, military-industrial complex, translating for the enemy in Afghanistan." I'm going too far there. Sharing a little bit more than I need to with regards to my father. So, I've seen the dark father, Darth Vader. Oh my God, you're my father. My father, myself, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. I can't believe you're my father. Here's a sword that I hold that's completely opposite of you and what you serve. It's me and my father. I shine the light of what this is really all about in Afghanistan. I'll talk more about that later. Conquering a country, funding radical Islam, so you always have the enemy to fight and the excuse to invade other countries and maintain a presence in Afghanistan, as opposed to the one that should know better, but will actually take the money from the U.S. government and do translation work. There's no doubt in my mind that he's translated something at some point that's led him to know better, either about the truth about 9/11 or about the evil that he serves. And that he's chosen to look the other side because he knowingly serves evil by serving the military-industrial complex. So, surviving a fatherless world and motherless world means not only self-healing, but being your own role model. Teaching yourself, experiencing for yourself. Asking yourself what the expression is, the divine feminine, and how that would actually manifest in our day and age. The divine feminine support the unjust murder of millions of people overseas. Is that what the divine feminine would support? No. Would the divine feminine support and love men that are the cannon fodder, the foot soldiers of the military industrial complex? Is that the rise of the divine feminine, or is that the dark feminine? How about the masculine? Is this sacred masculine when these men leave their families and they go overseas and they use drones over the people of Afghanistan? Is that the sacred masculine? Are they defending the tribe? Do they have stronger sperm now as a warrior protector for being so cowardly that some of these people actually operate drones out of a fucking warehouse in Vegas? Is that manly video game powerful sperm that we're dealing with? Yeah. You know? Or the man without a weapon, without a gun, taking risks. You're going to fucking lock me up, I'm going to speak about the truth. Is that really dark masculine? Are they really trying to cause a collapse in the United States? The people trying to warn people trying to tell people to get prepared? Is that really negative inherently, to tell people that you care enough about their lives, that you want them to think about their lives and how easy it really is if you just think ahead of time and maybe get out of a dangerous city before things start happening? The reality is, many of us have psychic potential and are able to understand glimpses of this. So we have a little bit of truth. This remote viewing is a term. This is obviously in that family of terms in relation to what I'm talking about, the sixth sense. And so I believe right now there are many men that have awoken to a certain degree and have evolved beyond the barbaric, hit the woman over the head, drag her into the cave. You know, there is a connection between men going their own way and spirituality growing beyond your own lust that keeps us chasing our tail and chasing the women that women say. Some of them claim they don't like men looking at them a certain way, but what they really, 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 really don't like, even more than that, in reality, are the men that are going their own way, that are no longer, you know, chasing them and directing their lives towards making a certain amount of money to serve them and basically pay for those women that theologically have become prostitutes. I'm talking about the mainstream expression of human relationships today. It is prostitution. It is prostitution, and more so today than in previous generations. It's just not called that. So it's surviving the dark feminine rising reality. It's surviving the motherless world. It's surviving the fatherless world, but bringing forth the return of the Father within. Okay, I've seen multiple role models in my life shift on me, become different people. I've acknowledged that I've learned some decent things from some of these role models, and in the end, I consider myself someone that has completely gone my own way. Not only from a lot of the women of today's world, but from a lot of men as well. Men that inspired me early on, men that I saw as a father or brother like contribution to my world and my development as a man. But in the end, I am my own man. And my ways of looking at certain things right now, they're rapidly changing. This whole experience camping has been very, very good for me. Tapping into my feminine, masculine self, healing those sides of myself. And in the healing of that, there is this truth, folks, that has to come out. So if there's only one thing that you're going to take away from this video, we have to be our own mother, father. We have to be our own guide. You know, we've talked about bringing the higher self more into our regular self. The Yogi T the other day said your higher self really is your soul. Okay, so we're bringing their soul, more of a higher knowing and higher self, which encompasses both masculine and feminine. And we are actively grounding ourselves in this reality. We are actively healing those aspects of ourselves. We are evolving. We are understanding loneliness. I talked about loneliness in a previous video, and how through the pain, which is the name of the blog that I have at AATV from a few years ago, through the pain we can find the way home. Okay, so it's through some of these traumas and loneliness and rejection, exile from society, that we can actually evolve to being the being that we are meant to evolve into. There's a purpose to being on Earth. It's a cause and effect realm. And we can take those traumas and evolve beyond them instead of being a product of our environment. Some of the last words that I'll leave you with: there's many people that are becoming a product of their environment in a motherless world. And it is war without end. It is genocide. The lack of romance between man and woman leads to more war. The lack of connection between man and woman leads to the men fighting, and in many cases, one group of men blaming the other group of men for their problems, or, said another way, a title of a previous video of mine, when white men blame brown men for their problems with women. This is becoming a huge issue, and it's very evident this is misdirected aggression, because there are many, many, many men of tan and brown nature that are also rejected by the women of today's world. So there's a lot of assumptions flying around, a lot of war, a lot of aggression, a lot of bombs being developed, and a lot of wars that these babies, these male babies and female babies, as they prepare to send the women to the front lines. You can see now in the motherless and fatherless world how war without end, is the end result of this, in conjunction to human trafficking in a world where women will sell women to human trafficking cartels. Okay, maybe you haven't educated yourself, maybe you've lived in a nice little bubble. This is apparently the way of the world in the realms of the international white slavery, human trafficking rings. Ultimately, in the end, God is going to deal with humanity, whether through the sun or through other things. Let go of your fears of cataclysms. As I leave you with this, just let go of your fears. Let go of your concerns, and instead consume yourself with doing the right thing without fear of repercussions from the dark ones of the unseen realms. There are others watching this experiment on Earth, and there are powers far greater than HARP and earthquake-causing machines. There are cosmic forces that humans have no control over, that the Archons have no control over, for that matter. There are forces of nature, if you will, that are coming from a higher order, that are really in the end going to dictate when the lights go out, when civilization breaks down. And there is a process that is working itself out. There is a process that is working itself out in ways that we don't fully understand. So in the meantime, focus on your own spiritual development and evolving beyond this motherless, fatherless world. For it is our destiny to climb to new heights.